I'm going to scroll back down to where our original ternary operator was. So the goal of this particular ternary operator is to populate a form input with the value that the user inserted. So you see search phrase here, but then in the form, which we're about to look at, we see that the value of this input is search phrase. So as a user inputs something, we want to show that back in that search form as the form gets refreshed. Now in our previous example, we set that variable that gets used down here to nothing at the very top of the page, and then we replace that value later in the code if somebody actually submits the form. In this case, we're doing the same thing, but we're doing it all on one line with a ternary operator. So we're checking to see if the user submitted the form and there's some value for the search input, which is called phrase. If it's set, then we're going to set the value of the search phrase variable to the phrase that got submitted via the form. If it's not set, we're just going to initialize the variable by setting its value to empty. So the first time that this form is built, search phrase will be empty. In this next section, what we're doing is specifying the data file that includes the people data that we're going to be using. It's in a file called data.txt. If you haven't created this file already, you can copy it from the resource pack and put it in the root folder of your PHP examples. This next variable that we're setting are the labels that go across the table, and we're going to pass these two items to the parse data file function. This will run through the file, which is a comma-separated value file, and will return an array as this items variable. And then we're going to pass items to the output as table function. But again, like I mentioned before, we have a second parameter now, which is search phrase. The first time that this runs, search phrase will be empty. So these two functions will behave as they did in our previous example at this point when we haven't submitted a form yet. So we'll go ahead and skip that logic for now. And finally, we build the form. We're posting it back to this file, test.php. We're using a post method, and we have one text input next to a label that says search phrase. The name is phrase, and we're printing the value search phrase. Again, we use this to pass to the output as table function, and we set it in this ternary operator here. And then finally, we have our submit button. Okay, so this is running through this file the first time this form is loaded. But when the user submits the file, let's go ahead and see what changes. So again, the top of our file includes the two function declarations, and the code begins executing right here. This time though, instead of the search phrase being empty, it actually has some content. Let's say we're searching for the word beach, and so because it's set, it will assign the value of the search phrase variable to the post value of phrase, which is beach. So search phrase now equals beach. Next, we go ahead and load the data from the data file. And finally, we output as table, passing this search phrase in. So let's go ahead and look at this output as table function now that we have a search phrase. I'm going to go ahead and scroll up to the beginning of the function here.